Today we're going to talk about rails, which is just a fancy way of saying the edges of the board. Now you may have noticed if you've looked at various different kiteboards that the rails or the edges tend to differ quite a lot from one board to another. And especially if you move into the area of surfboards, a surf kiteboard, a directional board, those rails, the edges of that board will be very, very different to those of a twin tip. So what's going on here? Well, to explain, I'm going to use a few diagrams. Now let's start with a surfboard. A surfboard has got fairly fat, thick rails and they're fairly rounded generally. Yeah, it will differ from surfboard to surfboard, but let's compare surfboard to twin tip. So a surfboard's got fairly fat, rounded rails. And the easiest way I think about this, again in a very basic way, imagine taking the fins off a surfboard and trying to go snowboarding on it. Now what would happen when you tried to turn or when you tried to stop? Well, because of those fat rails, literally the board, it just wouldn't engage. You would just slide, the board would turn sideways and you'd end up sliding sideways down the slope. Compare that to a twin tip. Again, take a twin tip, take the fins off it and try and go snowboarding on this. Yeah, it wouldn't be comfortable. I'm not saying it would be nice, but at least when you engage the rail, when you engage the edge, something would happen. You'd have some grip. And this very basically is what a rail does. So your fat rail, your surfboard rail, it won't provide much grip, but it will move, it will rock from side to side very easily, thus giving you those nice transition, the smooth transition effects that you want when you're carving up and down a wave. Whereas a sharp rail, like the ones we find on a twin tip board, will grip like a knife, it will dagger into the water and provide a load of grip, but it won't roll. It will tend to be much more jerky in its movements because of that grip. You have to disengage the rail and then turn the board from there. So the board is much harder to turn in that respect. It doesn't roll so much from side to side. So for you hydrodynamicists out there, I know this is a massive oversimplification, but it's just a really, really easy way of thinking about it. Fat rail is less grip, but more turning, whereas a sharp rail, like you find in a twin tip, is more grip, but less, it's harder to turn that board, it's harder to disengage the rail, so it doesn't roll from side to side as much. Now, what you may well notice on your twin tip board is that it's got the rail changes throughout the rocker line. So at the tips of the board, you've got a very, very sharp rail, and as you go down through the middle of the board, the rail gets fatter and a bit softer, gets a bit rounder. Now this is so that you get the best of both worlds, so that you've got a bit of transition and roll in the middle of the board, but you've got plenty of grip at the edges when you want to dig a heel in, when you want to jump or do something like that. So you often get these rail patterns that change throughout the rocker line as well. So look for that on a twin tip board. Not all twin tip boards have this, but certainly some of the more advanced boards you may well see this happening. Okay guys, so as I say, massive oversimplification there. I understand that, but I just want to give you the basics of what this means and how to start using this when you're looking at different board types and how it works actually in the water. If you found that useful, we go into this sort of stuff in a lot more detail in our course that's designed to knock weeks, if not months, off your time learning to kite surf. It's also designed to save you hundreds, if not thousands, on your lesson cost. You can check it out. I've put the link in the notes below this video. Go and check out that course. There's loads of guys going through it already, finding it amazing, and they are absolutely shooting through to the point where they're riding upwind. And I'd love to see you on the inside. As always, if you enjoyed that, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.